All right, we're back. This is going to be part two on December 8th, 2022, with a special guest here. We're basically doing co-host. First Sergeant retired, Brian Norris. He just recently retired, did over 20 plus years service in the Army, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we did a video for the first time just 2 days ago, and we had a lot of good feedback. So we said we're going to do a part two, getting comfortable with uncomfortable. And I'm just going to touch up before I hand the mic over to Brian here, because this is all kind of tied up with his what he's been basically doing his whole life, being in the Army. Right now, we've got North Philly. We saw some pictures and videos where gas station owners are hiring security service, basically full body armor, AKs out there protecting their gas station because of crime. Just recently, Walmart CEO came out. I will post all these links down below so you guys can take a look yourself. That he is so worried about theft, which is obviously why the gas station owner hired armed guards, that the CEO from Walmart is saying that they're just going to start closing stores down because they can't keep stuff on the shelves. Not because prices are so low, but that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
It's because of crime that's happening. So basically citizens are on their own. Law enforcement cannot do much. And I always said on this channel, be your own security. Be your own central bank by holding real things in your possession. Be your own security for the most part, because you can have whatever. You can have a lot of ammo, you can have physical gold, whatever it is. If you can't protect it, if you're not capable, if you're not self-sufficient, none of that matters. Somebody's just going to come in and take it. And I've seen it happen when I was a teenager back in Europe, and it is unfortunately happening here in the United States. I usually say divided. It's very sad, states of America. So with that being said, what are your thoughts on this CEO from Walmart saying this and armed guards and all that? What do you say to our listeners here? How to prepare for this, and what are you doing? What would you do?
Well, first, thanks for having me back on. I appreciate it, Marco. I always love chatting with you. And with that, I would say it's the United States of America. The strongest, most advanced, most productive nation in the history of the planet. And we seriously have to have individuals with fully automatic, semi-automatic weapons and bulletproof vests with Kevlar on to keep you safe while you pump gas. And we have to start shutting down convenience stores because we can't control the theft. And when we do start arresting them, they're released immediately after and back in the stores. And most often, in a lot of the areas, they're not even charged with anything unless the theft was over thousands of dollars, especially in the case of San Francisco or in California. Unless it's over $1,000, they won't even get charged with it. So it's just, you're just telling individuals like it's okay to come and steal as long as you don't take more than $1,000. Well, we don't care, you know. And you're telling the store owners, sucks to suck.
And in the meantime, if you wear a mask, then you are doing something.
It worked out pretty good, right? It worked out pretty good for them.
For others' safety, right? I mean, you can't make this up if you try. But as you guys know on this channel, we try to focus on solutions to problems. We talked about getting outside the cities. If you are already outside the city, you are a country boy, you've been living there your whole life, we're going to talk about a couple of things, what you can do here when it comes down to monetary policies on different videos, so it doesn't go too long. But if you're one of those guys out there that, you know, you got family or you're living with your parents or your parents are living with you, whatever the case may be, you got few dogs, you just want to get out. There are ways to do this, and I talked about on a previous channel, you might have to get a haircut, meaning for your pay, get a remote position, but your house payment, your rent is going to be way cheaper. You might have a lot more land, but you are out of that corporate world when they force people to do you know what in order to keep the job. With a recent health event, as you guys know what I'm talking about, how there is always ways to get out of this, and we're going to try to focus on those type of solution. So I believe that people should be getting out of cities. What are your thoughts on this and how to get it done?
There's always a choice, right? And you couldn't pay me to live in a city. Since coming back to the United States, every city that I've went to is just absolutely disgusting, and they're just progressively getting worse.
How long you been out now?
We were outside the United States for over a decade. I think it was something, the continental United States, it was about 12 years, something like that total that we were outside of it. And then we did come back and vacation in between and see family and stuff. But because we were detached, we had a detached view when we would come in, we would notice the changes, right? It's like living with someone that's overweight and then they slowly begin losing weight. You don't notice as much as someone that hasn't seen them in a few months and all of a sudden comes back into the picture. It's the same thing with your local environment. Sometimes you need to have a detached perspective to see the real situation of what's going on. And each time we came back to the States and we went to a city, it was just disgusting. And my wife was originally from Northern California, not too far from San Francisco. I loved going to San Francisco. Some of the best food in the United States that you can eat is in San Francisco. And one of the world's best sandwiches that I've ever had is from a place called Ike's Place. I think it was 7 years ago, maybe 6, was the last time we went. And I didn't even go and get a sandwich because of the issues going on right outside the area. I would not take my wife on into that that neighborhood to get a sandwich.
On
it wasn't
the
worth it.
previous video, you used words culture. You said culture shock.
Yeah.
So you said you were basically outside of U.S. for a while, over a decade, and then you just retired about a year ago.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
so you saw huge changes just within, and this is exactly the time, and just in the last few years, things really got a lot worse. So you really must have been, like you said, culture shock.
And
for sure.
sad.
And that's why you want to be here. And you said your wife is a city girl from California, and she's out here in Ozarks.
And loving
hanging
life.
out.
Absolutely
Yeah.
loving life.
Yeah, we had my wife and his wife plucking chickens. You see these two ladies, you would say there is no way in the world they're going to be living in places like this and doing what they're doing. I guarantee you, if you see them, you would say, this is LA. By the way, we do have connections with California as well on the side of my wife. They were born in actually Arkansas, but in Russellville. So I got some ties with Arkansas. But she was just very young, like just a few months. So they ended up going to, I don't want to go into all that story, but they were in California for a while. So she knows LA style as well and all that. And then to watch her, the point of the story is out here in the country. And where Brian lives, there is actually neighbors. It's a very cute neighborhood. It's just, it is in Arkansas. It's not in the big city. Was it 11,000 people out here at the most?
Most.
Yeah,
Max.
and where I'm at, it's
we're
about
on the very edge of
600
it.
people. That's it. But it's not far from here. So we can meet up and do these fun videos, hopefully sometimes, maybe once a month, twice a month, depending how the feedback is. So, so you are all on board with not telling people what to do, just kind of throwing some ideas out there that it would be a good idea to get the hell out of cities.
It would be, absolutely.
Okay.
And you think that you're ready for the worst day of your life? You're not. No one ever really is until you've had that experience and you know what it's like. It's kind of getting punched in the face for the very first time. You think that you're ready, but when it happens, it's completely different. I remember the first time that I went into Afghanistan, I had this picture in my mind of how I was going to react when things happened. And when things happened, I didn't react anyway. I was very foolish in the way that I reacted my first time.
I wanted to add this one from Mike Tyson. Remember his quote?
Yeah.
Everyone has a plan
Yeah.
until you get punched in the mouth.
We say the enemy always has a vote.
Yeah.
So you can make the absolute best plan ever created, but the enemy gets a vote in the outcome of your plan. And the enemy can be yourself sometimes. What is stopping you from getting out of this terrible situation? Are you so attached to that comfort and living in your little shoebox apartment and being able to go out to the restaurant at any time that you want to and having access to X, Y, and Z 24/7, right? Or ultra high fast internet, all of this stuff that really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. I was one of those individuals at one point in time too, right? I loved having my TV. I loved having these accesses.
Same here.
You
Not
know?
long ago. Yeah.
But then when I moved away and that wasn't available to me because it just didn't exist, well, you found other things that I actually enjoyed more. Now we don't have TV. We haven't had TV in our house for 9 years probably, and you couldn't get me to go back to that. Everything that you think is absolutely necessary in the life that you're living in a city right now is not necessary.
I remember a story. We were in Las Vegas at the time, and we were calling for DirecTV. Just moved to sold one house, moving to a different one, and they put us on hold for like 20 minutes, right? And I looked at my wife and I said, "Why are you still on hold?" She's like, "I don't know." I can tell she's getting annoyed, right? Like, we're about to pay, and I was all on board with NFL Sunday Ticket. You know, I was on a bunch of fantasy teams.
I don't even watch sports anymore.
I do not. And we looked at each other and we just hung up the phone. They start calling us. We had all these letters in the mail coming in for DirecTV. It's been now, I think I might be wrong, 5 or 6 years. I don't miss it one bit. I just pick movies for kids that I want to watch.
We have a DVD player.
Big TV on the wall with Bose surround sound, and we put whatever, Cinderella or whatever movie that we believe it's appropriate for them to watch. And that's kind of like what we did. But that was not easy to make the decision. It was, again, getting comfortable with uncomfortable.
We didn't have a choice. I mean, it was kind of thrust on us by the life situations that we were put in where we were going. There was no other option. And it ended up being a blessing. You know, sometimes what you think can be the worst possible situation in your life turns out to be the best. If you embrace it and you just move forward and do things.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, what you just said. And it's so simple, but so hard for a lot of people to do.
I got a buddy right now that stayed in, and he absolutely refused the vaccine. I went in, I retired, but for that and some other reasons. And he just adamantly, and they treated this guy, they ostracized him, and they treated him like garbage. And he was a great young captain. He is. He's still in. He's a fantastic. He's one of the people that you want being in leadership positions. He's caring, intelligent.
So he's still in.
He's still in,
to maneuver
right?
his
But
way
they
around.
pigeonholed him. They gave him positions of non-responsibility. Today, the House passed a bill that said they're going to repeal the vaccine mandate, COVID vaccine mandate on military personnel, and are also looking at bringing back all the ones that they kicked out that didn't get it.
I did see that, and I'm so glad you mentioned that because I was going to ask you because I know you keep up
but the thing about that is when he thought that he was calling me all the time. He was so worried about it. I told him, I said, just push through, see it through. Nothing's happening yet. They actually ended up moving this guy to his home of record, and he got to go back to college and get his master's degree, and he got to spend 2 years with his family that he never would have gotten to do. He would have been traveling all over the place and doing God only knows what for Uncle Sam, right? But he got to spend that time, and he got to get a degree, his master's in logistics. Now he's more marketable. He's better positioned in the civilian workforce if he's got to leave the Army, and he got to have that precious time with his family as they're getting older. His parents are getting older, and he got to share a lot of those life experiences. He got to welcome his brand new niece, the first grandchild for his parents and all that stuff. And he wouldn't have gotten to have if he hadn't have had the courage to go through. And guess what? He's going to get to keep his job too.
I bet he was not comfortable.
No.
Doing this because he knew what were they going to do, and then look what happened today, right? With that bill passed. So
the amount of phone calls that I got and text messages from him and worrying, and I was trying to just mentor and coach him through that. I know it's stressful right now, but this is a path that you made, and you still have a choice. You can choose to go ahead and get it if you want to, but you know what the consequences are going to be. Or you can choose to continue what you've been going through, and you know what might happen. Hasn't happened yet.
Yep. I looked at it as when we were out on the Gulf Coast, right, with all this lockdowns, when everything that happened, right? I looked at it as there's got to be a reason why, because I always wanted land, right, to kind of tie in with this before we finish this video. I ended up just saying, you know what, it's done, because they locked, all the beach accesses. They had police in every entrance.
Name one thing that the government has ever pushed onto the populace that it was good for them?
Yeah.
Name one.
I don't have any. Do you?
No.
I think most of our listeners would say the same thing. So when you looked at it like that, I was like, it's time now. This had to happen. Why? To push me. So I looked at it
Same
as
with me.
to push me to actually make that move, because it wasn't easy. Like I said, the closest to the cow I got was watching them while I drive.
Bro, we wanted to retire in Italy.
Yeah. Looking at all of that, it was just like, how did it all happen? Because it was just your will. And sometimes, all the time, God works in mysterious ways. He just kind of puts these paths before you, and it kind of gives you that choice. And a
you
lot
gotta
of
be
people
willing to
say,
embrace it.
nope, I'm more comfortable. I'm not making that decision, right?
You got to be willing to embrace it.
Yep.
And
So-
you don't always have to understand the why behind something, right? But if you're feeling like you're being pushed into a certain direction, and from my life experiences, every time I've made a decision based solely on money, it's never worked out. Never. When I stopped making decisions solely based on money, I ended up having a more pleasurable experience. Things worked out. And guess what? The money still comes.
Almost like no pressure.
And no pressure.
When we got
no
to
stress.
Arkansas, like I said on the previous video, there was no jobs in sight at all. Had some savings, but not for too long. But I just trusted God. I trusted my overall gut feeling. Like, listen, this is going to be a good move. I don't want to deal with all these weird people around. I'm not going to let someone tell me I can't leave the house or
Your
whatever.
kids ain't having to see transvestites while they're walking to the convenience store.
Exactly.
They're not watching someone get robbed at the gas pump across from them.
Yeah.
They're not seeing some crack addict expose himself to them because he's so high. He doesn't know what planet he's on. I mean, the list
It just goes on and
goes on.
But then again, the opportunities, it just kind of like happens like this. Then all of a sudden I'm looking at it. Okay, the whole point was I want some land, I want some cows, right? But it was food for us.
Yeah.
Right. So I purchased 2 cows from some guy that we found somewhere, whatever. Right. He brings 9 in the trailer. I'm like, okay, great. So I get to pick. I was telling you that story a while back, right?
Yeah.
He was an old man driver, right? He must have been like 80 or 90 years old. So I looked at him. I said, hey, I want 29.22 and 29.23, right? And he looked at me, and I didn't understand the word he said. You know how it is out here.
Speaking Arkansas.
Especially me, right? So he's like, no, man, I can't help you. I'm just a driver. You have to call whatever the guy's name was. I forgot now already. And he might be able to do something for you to tell you how to do it. And I got this guy with me that was really strong, play O-line in football, right? Mm-hmm. And he was helping me out with the fence and all that. So I said, okay, I got good old Bill here, so he's going to help me out. So we try to get these 2 cows out. There is no way. They're just sticking their heads together. It's herd mentality. They're not coming out. So I called the guy back. I said, how are we going to do this? He's like, I don't know. We'll basically pick 2. I said, well, what if we get all? Because I really wanted to have some cows,
discount.
Right? He says, well, that's the price. I said, well, you give me whatever X amount off per head, and I'm going to get them all. That's how the story started, basically, for the whole farm-to-table business that happened because of these lockdowns and everything. I ended up with 9 cows instead of 2, and all of a sudden, a lot of friends start calling, hey, we need some, meat and all that. It just turned into an opportunity, and that's what I want to finish this video off with, is to look for all these bad things that happen that could actually be the best thing that can ever be for you, and be willing to step out
Get in
of
where you
your
fit
comfort
in.
zone.
Get in where you fit in.
Comfortable with,
They're uncomfortable.
and that was the quote from Brian Norris. He said he might have read it in one of the books. He doesn't know which one, but he thinks he also might have came up with it. But I liked it when he said it, and I wanted to make these videos based on this, because this is what a lot of people need to understand. So I want to finish this video. Hopefully in January we'll make another one with Brian Norris, retired first sergeant in the Army. I appreciate you, man, and thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me on.
Hope to talk to you guys soon.
Absolutely.
We are out.